个话题是叫清零猛回头另有原因，这个是关于疫情清零，是和这个有关的吗？
对，这个好像是李奇博士每个星期有很多时间。上个星期你还说啊，李奇博士在成功的路上引起别人的怀疑，因为李奇他有有好几个工作，就是说一方面是这个华尔街论坛，还有一个是要帮助我们跟别人合作，要做一个英文的节目，因为这是我们的一个尝试。那么英文节目里面他会专访到很多的专业人士。这个访问呢是上个星期进行的，看我们的导播能不能来得及把这个片段放给大家，然后我们做一些评价，看看一个德国的驻华记者他是怎么看待中国的这样一个清零期间的一些政策性的一些变化，中国的一些现状。
让我们来看一下视频。
Joining me today is Xifan Yang, China correspondent for DaiSite. Thank you so much, Xifan, for joining me today.
Thank you, Lizzie, for inviting me.
So, Xifan, China recently scaled back many of its pandemic controls and did so quite abruptly. What's the general sentiment as you observe on the ground among Chinese people? Are they supportive of the latest change? Are they suspicious? Or is it something in between?
I really do think it's a mix of relief, disbelief, and anxiety. So some people I've met over the last couple of days, they're really happy, they can reopen their shops again, they can go to restaurants, they're starting to planning their first trips abroad. And and some of the young people in China, they also do feel validated that political protests can lead to something, right? Others around me actually are really shocked, especially when you are aware of the low vaccination rates among the elderly, when you are aware of the risk of getting long COVID. And given all that, when you see the sudden shift in public messaging now, which is actually a drastic shift overnight, then just losing up like this feels a bit reckless. And I actually belong to that group. And then there's this third group, mostly elder people or just like regular folks you see on the street. They actually feel very anxious about all of this. They are very confused because they have been believing the zero COVID propaganda for 3 years. And the government has been telling them that Omicron is really dangerous up until just last week. And all of a sudden, it's not dangerous anymore. So those people, they feel insecure. They don't know how to protect themselves. They just don't understand why they cannot get tested anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right. So on social media, we've seen some chaotic scenes of people rushing to hospitals and local pharmacies to stock up on medicines and test kits. And I've heard from my family members that all the, cold remedies are sold out online. How hard or easy is it nowadays for people to get med supplies? And how are people coping with the seeming shortage?
Yeah, so I was just walking by some pharmacies this afternoon in Beijing, and you see that all the shelves with pain medicine, ibuprofen, and so on are emptied out. That's actually why we see all the long lines in front of the hospitals as well. It's not because all these people have heavy symptoms and need to go to the ICU. No, it's because the pharmacies don't have medicine anymore. They're sold out. So the only place the people still can go to are the hospitals. But that in itself, creates a new risk of people who maybe, want to get medicine for their friends or their relatives, and they go to overcrowded hospitals, and there they get infected in the first place. Yeah.
Right. So we've heard from many Chinese public health officials in the past few years who cited China's low vaccination rate, especially among the older people, as well as the risk of overwhelming China's limited medical resources as the main reasons to stick to the zero COVID approach. Have these hurdles been cleared? If not, do you get the sense that China's pivot away from zero COVID is a little rushed?
I think it is very rushed. We know that the vaccination rates among the elderly are low. For the over 80-year-old, only 40% are boosted. And for the over 60-year-old, the number stands around 70. I would even take those numbers with a bit of caution, though, because if you want to look into how many people are vaccinated in various provinces, a lot of local numbers are not even available, right? For example, for remote provinces like Yunnan, Guizhou, Guangxi, or also Xinjiang, you don't find any data available in public. So yeah, that is not very assuring, I think. And now the government wants to push the vaccination campaign as quickly as possible. This weekend, when I was passing by some vaccination centers in Beijing, they were not operating at all.
So, why do you think Beijing made the sudden U-turn on zero COVID if the country is not prepared yet?
I think there were a lot of different reasons behind that. It's the economic costs that were exploding. A lot of provincial governments were going bankrupt because they had to fund more and more PCR tests. They had to build all the fund tanks for, like billions of dollars. Then the pressure by big companies, by big multinationals was growing. When we remember the drama that we seen in Zhengzhou, right, at the biggest iPhone factory in the world. Then, of course, I think the public discontent also had an impact. I wouldn't say it was a major trigger, but it had an impact, played a role. Beijing normally doesn't like to give in to protest because they don't want to encourage more protests. But here, I do think the protests have been giving the regime also a convenient off-ramp, because now they say, see, you wanted to end zero COVID. Here now, we now give you the end of zero COVID, right? And I also do think that the government came to the conclusion that 80% of the protesters only wanted to end zero COVID in the first place and not want to change the regime, which is why they thought it was safe to give in to that. And I also do think, I also do wonder at least whether the recent trips abroad that Xi undertook played an impact. He has been to Bali, he has been to Bangkok, and maybe he had also a change of mind when he was traveling abroad for the first time in 3 years.
Right. And to many of us in our international community who has been watching China's zero COVID lockdowns for the past few years, the news came as a pleasant surprise. But there are obviously potential risks. Based on your conversations with experts, what are some of the potential risks that we need to be aware associated with China's COVID reversal?
I think the first obvious risk is the exit, not even an exit wave, it's the exit tsunami that's unavoidably going to happen over the next couple of weeks. And around 1 million, maybe even more people, especially the elderly, the people with preconditions, might die. So that is the first obvious risk. Then I also do think that there might be a political fallout. It's kind of, this drastic shift in public messaging is also kind of dangerous. Like for 3 years, you say COVID needs to be contained at any price. And now you just lie flat and you just say, we don't care anymore. So I wonder whether people will question the government narratives, not only in this instance, but also with other issues in the future. And then also there might be a political fallout for Xi himself, because he was portraying himself as a great townsman who was in charge of commanding zero COVID, steering China through this pandemic, right? And Xi himself is supposed to be infallible. So if his policies can change overnight, then that doesn't really present the zero COVID exactly in a positive light, right? And the same goes for his personal judgment, maybe.
非常感谢李琦的这个采访。有的时候我站在中国政府的角度会想，我给你封控吧，你们闹；现在你们闹的我受不了了，我给你解封吧，你们又有意见。我个人的感觉就是，这个是政府和民众之间的交流出现问题，没有充分的解释，没有充分的一个你在封控的时候你要征求人家的意见，然后你这个解封的你就不至于把人家逼的就是要跑上街上，对吧？跑到街上去。
我倒是觉得不一定是征求意见，但是我们是看看美国啊，看其他国家，在这次的整个的疫情过程中间，还是 每个国家都不同程度出现了混乱，不同程度出现了问题。但是呢，我认为西方的经验对于中国来讲非常值得尊重的至少有几点。第一就是说，对于绝大多数的西方国家来讲，它始终有一个公共卫生的机构。
对，
这个机构它的权威性、它的可信度是超过政客的。
对，
甚至超过总统和总理。
以前跟那个福奇和川普就闹了一场。
所以我觉得这个意义来讲呢，中国疫情也不是这一次为了还会有这样的问题，所以中国必须要让这个公共卫生系统的这种权威性建立起来，
独立操作
他们自己真正有一些专家，不能听那就是找这些野鸡专家。这些野鸡专家是什么野鸡专家呢？就是说，你只要给他钱，他就是他都可以说。你今天说这清零政策有必要性，他可以叭讲这5点。明天清零政策说要取消，他也可以叭讲个5点，这个叫野鸡嘛，对不对？野鸡就是你付钱就可以了，对吧？所以这个就是说，这是一个巨大的问题。公共卫生系统自己应该有自己的专家，像福奇博士这样。虽然福奇博士在美国遭到了非常大的伤害和攻击，但是呢，对于绝大多数的民众来讲，它始终是一种专业的象征。第二个就是需要有专业的媒体，就是说人们现在的这个社交媒体资讯的时代啊，资讯非常的泛滥，就是说这样50后、60后、70后这一批人基本上是在传统社会里面走出来的。我们在传统社会里对文字有一种，
尤其是对印刷体
对印刷体有一种有一点信任感，所以呢，就是说基本上现在我认为比较中老年的一批人缺乏了基本上的信息的辨识能力。而微信呢就是说中国的妖孽最多的一个地方。就是中共控制的可能就是你的反动理论，但是并不控制妖孽和谣孽。这样的话对老百姓的认知造成了非常大的一个误导性的作用。美国不同，美国就是说你虽然有这些极端媒体，有极端右翼的和极端左翼的，但是始终有一些公共的媒体保证了它的公共的权威性。而相当多的民众呢，在整出看什么消息的时候，看爽的时候他可能会看左或者右，但是他真正去查这些认真资料的时候，他还是觉得这个媒体比较有权威性。比如说美国的这个NPR， 对不对比如说这个美联社就是说这种消息一看你就知道，你不能说他的消息100%的准确，但是基本上它是有它的权威性。所以中国既没有一等专业的这种引导机构，同时呢又没有一个正常的媒体，造成现在今天的老百姓的混乱，你到了一种无法想象的一种地步。所以各种各样的消息彼此矛盾，但是呢好像都有一些道理，
而且
因为彼此都去信任。
决策的制定的话相当的有随意性，说封的话就全部给你封的水泄不通，说解封砰一下人又全部不见了。我管这种现象叫抽风。
是你这个机构即使是政府是干什么的？政府是应该配合公共卫生专家的这个要求。公共卫生专家他有一个专业的程序，这个专业的程序他不应该授予党中央国务院领导，而是党中央国务院在这个时候应该知道要尊重你的专业的机构，这样的话专业机构才能真正确定起来。你在这个时候专业机构说我们要全部封控，把国门关了，你政府部门就配合，对吧？你比如说你请过共产党员要动员起来支持这个公卫机构，你去动火，你不能说你去下一个命令要公共卫生专家怎么做，对吧？当然
你说的这个是很理想状态的一个东西，但是呢，我突然发现你说的这个和中国的一个国策相矛盾。中国的国策叫党领导一切，
是啊，
不是医生领导一切。
所以这就是这篇报道里面，李琦这篇报道里面访问里面提出的一个问题吧，就是说党领导一切，亲自部署亲自领导也有一个好处，如果这个党变了，天下也变了。你看习近平跑到海外对吧？到了这个巴厘岛，泡了这个曼谷，一发现没有那么凝重，没有那么紧张，各个国家都开放了，你就变成一个在风控上面就是独子一国，对吧？所以这个就是说对他影响可能是有一些大的。现在大家都在讨论是什么原因让这个习近平在根本上改变了他的这个政策那么这位记者他提供了他的说法就是所谓的这个习近平到海外看了一些情况有了一些改变，我认为是原因之一经济原因那当然是另外一个更重要的一个原因。但是我愿意把清零政策的改变这样一个错误政策的调整，我认为应该给年轻人， 应该给了不起的中国年轻人，他们为了自己的这种生活也好，学习也好，他们勇敢的走上街头，来为这种粗暴的这种政策来进行挑战。我认为中国的年轻人比我们这一代人，比我们上一代人，在这一次的清零中间表现出更勇敢。不是在网上就是整天发泄一下牢骚，发牢骚，那每个国家的国民都有，但是发牢骚是也是一种传染病，你就变成了只会发牢骚，你不会去行动。如果你真的这个时候你受不了，你撑上街头，政府也好，他没有那个力量能够控制到你的你看富士康的年轻人就这么走出来了。你多少军队多少警察，你怎么去镇压呀？他也不是革命，他也不是搞什么东西，他就是为了
一个非常具体的诉求。
对，我认为中国的社会的进步，通过这一次的清零中间，使我增加了信心，就是每一个人都应该为自己的一个生活来去维护有了这样一等共识的话呢，中国的社会的进步比追求一个高大上的或者是更具有理想化的政治途径其实来得更加现实，而且政府呢相对来讲也比较愿意做出妥协和让步。
是，
你同意吧？
我非常同意。这个年轻人在历史的关键时刻经常会起到非常关键的作用，他们是一支生力军他们的力量他们的能量非常大，但是问题是谁来操控他们年轻人是比较容易上当，比较容易激动的，谁来帮助他们？极左和极右都可以操控他们，
对，
这个是非常重要的。